Omnitanking is the quintessential Fire Emblem experience, facing down a sea of enemies, hoping all your preparations pay off, holding your breath as it switches to enemy phase. I'm going through unit tier lists, effects rankings, and 13 case studies, all so you can hear that sweet ting when you face off against your opponents. I love Omnitanks. Let's jump right in and talk about team construction. And there are two basic types of Omnitanks right now. You have the speed-based and other. Speed-based damage reduction is the biggest change to the meta right now. And you have so many counters to damage-piercing weapons. It's fantastic. Most of them come in special form, so guard or scowl or any kind of pulse tie. There are a lot of different ways to counter these, and it means that a lot of these skills that you used to be worried about with something like Deadeye, it's not that way anymore. It's fantastic. What you're going to be looking at is basically 3 mythics, one of them being speed-based. And once you do that, the traditional way of doing 4 doesn't mean as much because really you want that extra unit to have some sort of effect here. But you want them all pumped into one super speedy unit. Here we're talking about a Leer, and you've got both Grand Strategy and Bonus Doubler from respectively Robin and Ellawood. Summoners, this is your team. What we're talking about, and I've got this as a Rain-based team. Rains are in-combat debuffs, and they're so big right now and help a lot of what these tanks are trying to do. It's a little different, and you're going to be stacking things differently. Instead of speed, you want some other effect, some other piece of bulk. For this one in particular, you've got healing from Celine, you've got Grand Strategy from Legendary Robin because he's just amazing. And then you've got all these other units to help him as well. There are a lot of different units you can do this with, but all of them are fairly new and they're all overpowered. It takes a lot more to be a unit that has a brave effect to help you out, or this rain that we're talking about. We're gonna go over both types of these. Just know that if you're trying to revamp an old unit, speed is your friend. Now, before you get too excited, understand that I have not included armors in these tier lists. The biggest reason is, well, there's a couple reasons, but they're just better as saviors. Saviors, even with Embla, are so powerful. That's kind of where they belong. But the other thing is we're going to be looking at mainly infantry units, and you can stack so many things on them. Honestly, armors just don't have that kind of adaptability. Let's really jump in though and talk about speed and what it looks like in the meta right now. Speed creep has been insane this past year. Do I need to tell you that? It is everywhere. It's not only in your BST, like your base stats have gotten a lot higher, it's also in all of the skills from your preference weapons to your, how many different places is this Seliph getting speed from? All of them except the special, and I will see, maybe that'll come out soon. But anyway, looking at this unit and how he compares, this is the threshold unit. And I know you don't see him just incredibly a lot, but he still represents the absolute peak of speed. If you want a speedy unit, they need to be able to double Seliph. Now, when I'm worried about doubling, understand that I'm worried about that as a team. I'm not worried about your individual stats, so just keep that in mind. But this Seliph, he ignores bonuses, he ignores penalties, he has no follow-up. This unit is a monster, and you put Miracle on that. What we're really aiming for with this 71 effective speed here, you want at least 70, and I'm doing a little bit of rounding here, but that at least prevents a double and prevents this particular unit from proccing Luna, which can be detrimental to the health of your unit. What you really want to aim for is that 80 range, and this is two things: that secures your double, but it also gets you the full damage reduction. Remember, most of these damage reductions, when they're speed-based, they need to be 10 over what the opposing unit has. Like I said, I'm doing a little bit of rounding, but that is the range we're looking at. And I've got some different kits in here that we're seeing. You've got a Leer at that 85, and then you've got a Sedit Tiki at about that 80 range. Anything lower than that, you start to struggle, or you can do some special things to boost up speed. I want to know, before we dive in, who is your favorite Omnitank of all time? I'm such a fan, so I've probably used all of these, but is it Brave Dimitri and his new Refine? Is it Brave Ike? Like, are you old school? Is it Lucia? Are you new school and like the absolutely bonkers effects this unit has? Leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear it. Let's go over the old way. This is stat stacking, and this is how things used to be done. Like, this is crazy to remember this because honestly, it wasn't actually that long ago, but you would take your Omnitank and you would get as many units within 2 spaces of this unit as you possibly could and get all the drives on them. And I mean, you can see how this plays out. Like, this is absolutely nuts. This is modern day units, and you can see I've kind of pushed Embla off to the side so that we don't see that feud and that her other crazy skills. I want to see how Larcey does against Gisela, and it's not real hard to get enough speed to double this unit. You get 82, which is Summoners, that is respectable. We just looked at that range. That is perfectly fine. You don't get the full effect out of your damage reduction, but you do get enough to double, enough to survive, and you can see this Larcey just eating this thing for breakfast. Like, this is fantastic. So, what happened? Embla happened. Everyone talks about how much Embla affected Saviors. And she did. Undefended is an incredible skill, but the feud that she spits out was hugely detrimental to Omnitanks as well. It did just a whole lot of damage to how they do. And we're gonna see this same team. I think you guys know what's gonna happen. And we have, this time, Embla going up against these guys. So, we're trying Ye Old Flame, the unit that was supposed to never get old, right? No one was ever going to power creep Flame, and doesn't matter anymore. Like, you don't get the damage reduction, you get absolutely smashed. You're down to 74 speed, which is enough for all of these other units to double. For this in particular, I mean, there are a lot of lulls here, so you lose out on your bonus doubler, and you also lose out on your damage reduction. Summoners. It was a sad day for Omnitanks when Embla came to town. But also, because of the limitations she put on Saviors in general, we got a good look at what the new meta was going to be like, what they were going to drive us towards, and that really brought to light how Omnitanks themselves were going to be thrust into the spotlight, as we're about to see. So it is time to unveil my theory here, and the biggest takeaway is Omnitanks are just a bunch of effects at this point. Don't worry, we're about to go through all of these specifically. These are all from the game, and they are different ways that IS shows that you are buffing up a unit. So I didn't know some of these, so please don't panic here. But when you're looking at a team, that is the thing. You are trying to take your Omnitank and you're trying to stack as many of these as possible. And the higher up they are, the better your unit is going to perform. So in ways, you're not really looking at Legendary Robin. You're looking at Grand Strategy being added to your unit. You're looking at an Omni Unity that can stack. Yeah. There's a lot of things like that. We're going to go through them. First, let's jump into Tier 4. Every one of these effects is good. Like, they can all be used, they all have definite cases. If I'm pointing out the one with least value, guaranteed follow-up is probably it. And the thing is, we're in a speed-based meta and so many units have no follow-up. It doesn't hold as much as it used to 4 years ago. I don't know, it's been a while. The next up we have Area of Effect Damage Reduction. This is a new thing that we've gotten from Gato, and it is nice in the context of something like Summoner Duels. The problem is we just don't see it a whole lot in Aether Raids. That may change, but as long as Saviors are part of the meta, positioning beats AoEs so easily. So it's not something that's used just a ton, and I don't see Saviors ever going anywhere. They may have lost a little bit of value, but they're still very popular and folks love them. Kento 1 is a complete luxury, but it's an amazing luxury. Helping with positioning can be just fantastic, even if it doesn't help you win matches. No Panic is common. I mean, that's it. The other thing is with Grand Strategy in Unity, it can actually be a detriment. There are so many cases where you get to use those debuffs, that panic mana, wherever it's coming from, and actually buff up your enemy. That's a big deal right now. The last step we have here is follow-up denial, and it is great in the late game, but almost every single premier nuke has offensive null follow-up, so it just doesn't have quite the same value. Now, Tier 3 things get a little more interesting, and I know some of you folks aren't going to like this Phantom Speed ranking here, but here's the thing. Just give me speed. It helps me get doubles. It is just flat better than Phantom Speed. It's still good. Like the dodge 4 skills with this are fantastic. Next up we have Penalty Doubler, and I like Penalty Doubler a lot in theory, but the way you get it right now is mainly through Panic Smoke, and so it doesn't take effect on the first hit. The first hit is the most important when the most powerful unit is going to try to smack you. So it's a little less value, but if we get it in some different ways, this could climb. Adaptive damage is pretty amazing, but a lot of the tanks we're going up against now have either equal and high measure defense and res, or equal and low measure defense and res. There aren't a whole lot of units that are min-maxed in that way right now. That could change, but for now I still have this in like a tier 3. Special acceleration just has a lot of counters to it. It's really good, but we're in the age that Time's Pulse and Special Spiral can help you loop specials without having to worry about acceleration being countered by either tempo or guard. The last tier is true damage, and I wrestled with this one and whether it should climb up, but this really points out the fact that I am prioritizing survivability at this point. I think that is the most important thing. True damage is still very good though, and something that I look for in a unit. It is at the top of the nice to have scale. All right, tier 2. Bonus Doubler is amazing, but lulls exist, and they exist a lot on defense, so it can definitely be countered. Still, with Legendary Ellawood being able to grant that at distance, it is one heck of a skill to have. Distant counter for me has bounced around a bit on this list. I'm specifically talking about preference weapon distant counter here, and because of the rise of A skills and those getting better, the skill has gotten better itself. But understand that the fact that you could have that replaced by some other effect and then have a distant counter with stats as well, it's lost a little bit of value. Still, I mean, there are a lot of very good units that are good because of distant counter. In combat stats are fantastic. If a preference weapon gives you that, you are very happy. Still, it is not just tip-top in value. There are definitely cases where they give you some insane stats. Most of the time, though, this is just an Omni +5. Vantage is... Guys, you know I love Vantage. I'm a huge Vantage fan, but it's got hard counters. Hardy Bearing, sweeps, all of those can come in and just ruin your day as a Vantage user. Lulls are very underrated, but on offense, they're not as great simply because there aren't as many visible buffs that folks use on defenses. Anyway, they're still an incredible value. Scowls are the latest thing, and on the right units, these are really incredible, but they're still a bit niche, especially because they can only be used on dragons. We're still waiting for some different flavors, like I'm curious like how attack speed scowl would go on Ascendant Tiki. But again, there just aren't that many units that it synergizes with. Null Counter Disrupt, again, is on the tip top of this, and the reason is, traditionally, the biggest way you can counter Omnitanks is through counter disrupts. Think about old school Nana with the Flash Staff, and now you have the updated version of that with Elise, who is everywhere. But it's still just Elise right now. If they start releasing more healers, specifically with Seer's Snare coming out, I'm curious if this raises in value. Right now I just have it at tier 2 though, which is still very good, by the way. Moving into tier 1, and this is where we start to get into integral skills. And first up we have healing, and this is another one that goes up and down depending on my mood. It's one of those things, I guess, if you don't have it, you suddenly appreciate it a lot more, but it's still integral to sustainability, which is huge for Omnitanks. Omnitanks are going to get hit many, many times. It is kind of similar to no follow-up though. Both of these skills are incredible value, but they're relatively easy to get. Still, these are core things. Tempo falls kind of under the special prevention category, but it's also nice to keep your specials going. I don't see it on a lot of Omnitanks, but I still think it's very good. Null debuffs are incredible. Just ask Brave Hector fans. Debuffs are so prevalent now, and the fact that you can get this easily through Peony is phenomenal. Slaying has made a huge leap since all of the DR specials have come in. If you think of Vital Astra and Godlike Reflexes combined with something like Slaying, Times Pulse 4, and maybe something else in there, it is now easy to loop these specials and have them readily available and keep your unit healthy. Unity has been climbing for a bit, but Legendary Robin really thrust it into the meta, and the big deal is it stacks. Like, you can stack Grand Strategy and Unity, and that means all of these debuffs that we're getting anyway, seriously, folks don't even think about handing them out, and they do. They suddenly turn into bonuses and make your unit just amazing. One of the most common ones to debuff is speed, and again, we talked about it, that is one of the biggest things to get buffs on. Guard can save your life. This is kind of the special denial category though, and you get bonus points if you get super guard like Lucia. Last up is Tier 0, and these are the building blocks. For you to be an Omnitank, you have to have one of these. I'm not even kidding. Like, these are things, if you don't have one of these, then it's not something that I can work with. Believe me, I've tried. But Brave is the lowest on the list because generally Brave users are so easily countered by sweeps or some other type of counter disrupt. And the thing is, these are usually slower units. So most of the enemy phase Brave units just don't have the speed to really compete. We look at damage reduction, and if you look at it in a vacuum, like, damage reduction itself isn't amazing, but the fact that we can stack so many types of damage reduction right now is what really makes it incredible. So you're talking about specials, something in your preference weapon, inheritable skills. You can get drive damage reduction. You can get bonuses. It's nuts. Piercing specials are a thing, but we've already talked about that. Like, that is with the guard and with the special prevention, you can keep those from happening most of the time, and that makes your survivability go way up, and it increases the value of damage reduction. Reigns or in-combat debuffs are huge right now. This is the way that IS is really pushing the meta, and you can see it most clearly with Gateau. It's why he's so good, and it's the true counter to lethality. Think about that. Lethality was so powerful, and then they started handing out these reigns, and the value dropped significantly. So watch for these. They're fantastic on units, and they're better than you think. I know speed isn't technically an effect, but I had to put it up here because it is so integral to what we're doing in the game right now. We've already talked about speed creep, how much your preference weapon is already giving you so many stats in general, but this is the only way to stop true doubles. Like, this is the only way to get it done. That is the way you stop specials. You're still weak to brave weapons though, particularly with Ketria because she's the most common, but all brave users in general are something you're going to worry about. Last up here is flat damage reduction, and this is just incredible, especially combined with regular damage reduction. But it is good enough that if you just have this, then that's a unit that you can work with. Keep in mind that a meta so ingrained in speed right now, you can work around that if you have flat damage reduction, and that's how powerful the skill is. Whew, okay, so we've ranked all of those skills. We need to talk about the anatomy of an Omnitank next. So I wanted to go over just what a typical Omnitank looks like right now. And I've got Larcey up here, and this is nice because this is a unit that you could have gotten in the holo forms. So this is a unit that you could have easily gotten this exact fodder on. So the first thing you want to notice is speed. have I said that enough? You've got a speed boon, you've got +1 for the extra stats, you've got max flowers, you've got ally and summoner support. Folks, you are neglecting these. These are critical to your Omnitank, and they give you a lot of extra stats. Where was I? You've got Phantom Speed and Close Call 4, you've got at least 1 speed boosting mythic, and all of that is very important. We then get into damage reduction. So for this particular unit, you've got Close Call 4 and you've got Vital Astra or Godlike Reflexes depending on what unit you're using. Those are critical, and the specials themselves have really made these melee infantry tanks so good. The last thing we need to talk about is the fact that this is infantry, and the number one reason is they're flexible. They get the absolute most skills given to them, as well as the most ways to get buffs. Think about, like in this particular setup, I have Dogger there, and she has infantry null follow-up. So I can give null follow-up to any unit around Dogger. That's fantastic, and that is indicative of a lot of the things you can do with infantry. There's one more thing I want to go over before we get going, and that's threats in the meta. When I'm talking about building an Omnitank, these are really the units that I'm considering. Embla, just because of her effects, because of that feud and how it changes things. Elise, because she is the premier staff user and really the premier counter disrupt unit. Seliph, because he represents the speed that is coming at you, as well as a very good melee nuke. And then Katria, because triangle attack is such a critical part of what defenses do. It is truly the great equalizer that takes regular units and makes them able to compete with just crazy Omnitanks and save balls right now. But we've gone over that. I really want to talk about rankings. Let's just jump right in. All right, we're at tier 4, and I need to make something clear. All of these units can be successful Omnitanks, and they represent a lot of other units that you can possibly use, although this is definitely the tip top, whereas the next level down it would be harder to do. But the further up the list you get, the easier things are, and that's just it. All of these units have potential though, and they've given us a lot of different ways to buff things. I just know how much you guys love your Omnitanks, and I want to make sure I don't shoot anybody down. You can use your unit. It might be hard, but you can use it. Now, tier 4, dragons. And they're an interesting addition to this because I didn't think we'd have a whole lot of them, and they ended up peppered throughout this entire thing. They have some interesting B skills in the Dragon's Ire and the Dragon's Wrath, and they have DC as a seal, which makes things like these Murs better and able to use some really nice A skills. It's pretty fantastic. We've got Nyla here, who would be able to move up if she had access to the new DR specials or the new Dodge 4 skills, but she just doesn't. She's still a very good unit. I know folks who use her and absolutely love her, so I don't want to throw any shade your way. But talking about other dragons, Corin is due for a refine. She is due for a refine. You guys will be fine. Sometime in the future. I'm trying, guys. Corin is just in a tough spot. We're going to go down, and Larse, you've already seen her perform. Understand that if you go in and add a whole bunch of different bonuses like what we were talking about, she does perform better, but that is about the level that you're expecting. And so I did want to be able to use that example with the lowest unit in tier 4 that I have. Again, all of these units have potential. Are you ready for tier 3, where we get into the unique units? All of these units have something about them. Kranya, Winter Altina, and Legendary Leaf all make fantastic Vantage units, but they have clear counters. Rutger and Carla have pretty spectacular refines and have a lot of speed going for them. Carla in particular with that Resplendent is pretty great. Marita can cycle through Vital Astra very effectively, but doesn't have a whole lot else going. All of these units have upside, but they have definite counters. From here though, I wanted to move on to Kranya and just look at some gameplay, kind of an example of this tier. Now, when this unit works right, she just absolutely brings a smile to my face. Kranya has in-combat stats, Vantage, and true damage. It's not a lot, but her high HP means she can really take a hit. The downside is, to use her, you really need a bolt tower, and requiring a building is a tough sell. The awkward thing about ranged Omni tanks is that you have to be able to run close counter or just face tank melee units. Sorry, I was enjoying that that smackdown of Fomortis. Anyway, back to this. So, with this speed on Kranya, understand that I've been able to face tank Seliph, which is fantastic. She's just about to face tank Saros and Katria. So the HP combined with the speed, combined with null follow-up, which is a must, helps her a lot and helps her clear a lot of these other units. Also leaves units around so that you can go around and get pots. The clears are a lot of fun. As with most Vantage teams, I've gone hard on attack buffing, but we also have 2 units that inhibit the movement of the opposing team in Fjorm and Sather, and you're going to want to invest in those if you really want to work with Vantage. For close combat like this, Legendary Robin is clutch. When you smite Kranya up there, any meta skills will end up being bonuses. But you can see how this won't work versus some common defenses, namely because, I mean, even if you have the Bolt Tower off by just a little bit, you're going to be in trouble. I use Kranya a lot, but again, like, this is a fun unit with definite counters. As we look back at the tier list, that's most of the units here. Like they have some cases where they're gonna work really well, but some defenses where they're just not. I use Kranya a lot, and you can do the same with other members of this tier. But it is time, let's look at some role players. Tier 2 has a lot of the same characteristics as Tier 3, but they're more consistent. You've got folks with either solid speed or serious bulk. Our speedy units all perform about the same in The Sims, and I've got to use a couple of them. That is Dimitri, Marth, Lumera, and Byleth. Guys, they all show up. Like, these are solid units. These are fun to use. We've got some different things going on with Corin and Corin. The female Halloween version is a speedy unit, but has some limitations, and we're just about to go over those. The male unit is interesting just because how bulky he is, and people forget about that, and it really comes to play, and he's a better unit than most people give him credit for. Asker is another one of those units that is in need of being able to face tank. The problem with him is he doesn't have the speed to often survive some of those, but versus all ranged teams, which there are a lot of, he can really perform and be nice there. Speaking of that type of unit though, we have Gateau, and you guys know how high I am on him. I want to show you an example of gameplay and show you why I like him so much. We have so many effects right now that BST it doesn't mean as much as it used to, and Gateau is really an example of that. Now, as his main support, I've kind of doubled down on debuffs and really gone hard with Mark here, who I absolutely love, by the way, but Gateau himself has Slaying, Visible Stats, Starlight, Big Rains, Lull, no follow-up on offense, which is kind of weird, but a guaranteed follow-up, damage reduction, and Force Desperation, and look at that Veronica. Ting, ting. Summoners, that's incredible. This isn't bonus season. Like, this is just Gateau. The thing that really stands out there is those rains. Like, they really debuff the enemy, and for units like Veronica, that is something that is a deal breaker, and she just doesn't do as well with those. So again though, back on mythics and using them as carries. The thing that really changed here was all of these bonuses, and the deal there is with all of these extra things, if you have a mythic that is also a carry, you have an extra slot for those units. It's really spectacular, and you can do things like I've got both Mark and Elowood here. This unit shows up that way, and man, that Yuri, just ting, 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 all over the place. Summoners, I had Katria footage for this unit, but honestly, Cav lines are becoming such a thing that is nice to see a unit that just absolutely demolishes them. But like I said, this unit handles Katria balls as long as they don't have really heavy melee units. And that does happen, so it's something you have to watch out for. The biggest thing for this unit is you have to keep him away from Embla. Embla will come in and just smash him. But again, he deals with a lot of the things going on in the meta very well right now. Let's go ahead and move on to Halloween Female Corrin, because I really want to talk about this unit. Speedy dragons like Halloween Female Corrin are kind of in a bad spot. Yes, you get your A slot freed up at the cost of your seal, that distant counter seal, but you lose out on a lot of skill inheritance. And we've talked about how many things that melee infantry units are getting right now. But this is 94 effective speed, and summoners, that is a lot. This unit gets slaying, shield pulse, special acceleration, guard, flat damage reduction, adaptive damage, true damage, and special damage reduction in regards to negating Fang. That's absolutely amazing, but here's the thing that gets her. When you're talking about negating Fang, the problem is when a unit hits twice. You can see how I've set this up, and I definitely haven't put this unit up against a Catria Ball, but this took some doing. Like, I had to think about where exactly everyone went. We have a couple units that are really hard to deal with. Inez with the damage piercing is still good, which is kind of amazing. But Yoon is the big threat here with that true damage with the debuffs all around the opponent. This unit still showed up though. It's just not a unit that I would throw up against a Catria Ball. But the other thing I want to mention here as this is winding down is how good Asker is as a support. We get additional attack and speed, which is phenomenal, and that's in combat. You get denies follow-ups, which can be good. Again, late game, not great, normally, but it's nice to have. Reduces special cooldown is kind of amazing though for getting things started. And yeah, investing in Asker, it's pretty fantastic. Next unit though, I want to go up against just a quick case study on legendary Dimitri because I think he's interesting. How many Dimitris can I work into a single episode? There's only 2 here, I promise. It won't be more. But I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The biggest thing I wanted to go over here is the power of choosing the correct mythics. Now, Dimitri has a base res of 18. That's nuts. That is so low. But through merges, flowers, 2 res mythics, and buffs, you got him up to, what do we have here, 43? And did you see that Lilina just ting off of him? That was amazing. Anyway, that's a lot due to that res stacking, but that's also from Starlight that comes in from Gateau. We talked about it not being able to be used a ton, but there are definitely cases like this where it really shows up. You can see how well he does against melee threats though, especially in this area where you can stack speed on him. Just really polished a lot of this team off. Anyway, Summoners, we need to head back to the tier list and just look at how things are stacking up. Now, we've gone through the clear role players here, and they all do a good job, but I'm ready to talk about the heavy hitters, and this is when things really start to get fun. These units wreck stuff. You'll notice an interesting theme with specials here. Like you've got Faye, Felix, Altina, and Lynn all have interesting things going on with how they loop specials or they get preference specials. Even Ike has a preference special, but you're probably going to swap it out because it's not that good. But we're going to talk about Myrrh. I do want to hit on Faye because I don't have an example using her, but I think she's really interesting and she is way better than you think. And it's all because of that extra life. That is, Life Unending is fantastic and can really come in clutch for basically that first hit, like that biggest unit that's going to hit you. That can really do a lot of good. The other thing is she's gotten bulkier just from all the things that dragons get. We've talked about the distant counter seal. For her, Dragon's Ire 4. The finish skills really plug up her damage. And yeah, take your pick on the C skill. There are a lot of good ones. For you Ascendant Tiki fans, this is a really good tier. Don't look at me that way. The biggest thing is skill inheritance. Like that's it. She's a very good unit and she is a powerhouse in summoner duels. She is incredibly usable and I have had her just wreck me. So don't think that I am talking ill of that unit. But I want to talk about dragons some more, and with that I really want to dive into a case study with legendary Myrrh, because this is fascinating to me. This was such a shock. Summoners, all these dragons in here, I didn't realize they were going to do as well as they did. This dragon has slaying, damage reduction, adaptive damage, visible buffs, follow-up negation, and 2 other things. The first are Reigns, which I continue to underrate. But this is only an Omni -5, but it is clutch. I'm telling you, they are so much better than anything. The next though is Warp Bubble, and Warp Bubble itself just absolutely smashes so much in the meta that defenses want to do. It is crazy how well this unit does, and the one thing you're going to have a knock on this is just damage output. And you can see there with Embla. Like, Embla came in and didn't die. That's always bad to leave a unit around. As an Omni tank, you are opening up yourself for Wings of Mercy shenanigans, and I guess not Wings of Mercy shenanigans because it's Myr. But did you see that though? Did you see that? She just tanked Duocrom. This unit is so good. I am doubling down on Unity here with the Defense Res Unity and Grand Strategy. Yeah. The other thing is Celine coming in here with healing is just excellent, and of course Asker. But Summoners, this unit is a monster, and she is way better than she gets credit for. I am really enjoying using her. Yeah. Be on the lookout. Like, this is a unit that can really wreck stuff. I never thought I'd have Altina this high. This is crazy, but they gave her such an amazing refine. Altina smacks folks around. The hard part is, for this in particular, you really need Bernadetta, and that is an extra slot that you don't get support from. This also took a level 1 Plumeria, but you can get around that. Understand that. Getting into Vantage range it can be annoying, but it can be done pretty easily once you have Bernadetta. Now, the only reason this unit isn't higher is because Hardy Bearing just flat counters her. Also sweeps. But, I mean, look at this. Like, this is a Catria ball that would normally cause folks a ton of trouble. And we're going to see units come in and just... they're not even going to get a chance to attack. So many defenses ignore Hardy Bearing. I never thought Altina would do this good, ever. It is a sight to behold. Being able to counter like stock Catria balls is not a small deal, as just about anyone will tell you. The other nice thing about Vantage comps is because generally your units are a little further up, you have an easier access to pots. I generally don't have trouble with those as long as I don't accidentally sweep the team on the first turn like I just did like an hour ago, but we'll ignore that happened. Anyway, pots would probably be another episode altogether. I'm not going to talk about it here. They are an incredible pain though, and something you have to deal with as an Omnitank user. If you've been sleeping on Altina, I hope this video changes your mind. From here though, we need to go into one of our newest heroes with Felix. Look at that speed. An effective speed of 103 is phenomenal, Summoners. That is a sight to behold. So you're probably wondering why this unit is at the top of tier 1 and not at tier 0. And the threshold that I really decided on here was, can you reliably stand tall versus a Catria ball? I know this is weird because you're seeing a Catria ball right now. Like, you're tanking Gilliam, you're doing just fine. You're not killing Gilliam, but you do what you can. Still, this unit is holding up just fine. The problem is, this Catria ball is about one really good ranged nuke away from killing Felix and for this all being over. And that's just the way it is. I had to specifically pick this one because of the extra melee units that were here. And this is still really good. Again, tier 1, top of tier 1 is excellent. But I found that this unit behaves a lot like Corrin in that with brave hits, you get godlike reflexes on one of those hits, and on the other, you don't have it. And without that, you just don't have as much damage reduction. And every bit of that stacking helps. I did try this with Close Counter 4, and honestly, even in the Sims, I like the Bulwark skill better, and a lot of this because of the healing, which Felix actually needs. That's another reason why Celine is so good with him, and she is so underrated, Summoners. If you don't have this unit and you're an Omnitank user, get her. She's fantastic. But we're heading back to the tier list here. Have you figured it out? Like, have you whittled down exactly who's coming next? Do you already have it figured out? I'm excited. These are really fun units, and we're about to look at tier 0. To those who watch the channel, Lucia, Brave Dimitri, and Alir should be no surprise. They're amazing in their own rights and each have something unique to them. But Rhea? I am as shocked as you. I accidentally got a one-off from this unit and she blew me away. Like, I had to make a spot for her in this guide just because she's that good. Now, I've had Ninja Cam lower and I finally broke down and just moved her up. Hardy Bearing just didn't take over like I thought it would after Choose Your Legends. And the other thing is, her play is a lot like old school Brave Claude used to be. We'll get into it. She's kind of a hybrid case and I want to go over a case study and talk about her more. All right, Summoners, effective speed of 11. I've had a lot of conversations about whether Vantage is omni-tanking, and the real answer is sometimes. But this clear here is definitely omni-tanking. Now, I've built an entire team around a single unit soloing a map in the enemy phase. If that isn't omni-tanking, I don't know what is. The thing about Cam is she has different modes. Like, being a flyer, it's very easy for her to do the hit and run role, but her favorite is the hit and sit, which we really haven't seen for a while. Like, this is something that used to be done all the time like 3-4 years ago. This is something where you can go in and you can take out the problem unit or units and then just sit there and let the other units come in and wash over you and finish them off. It means that things like Hardy Bearing aren't as big of a detriment because a lot of times you can come in and get those units out of the way in some form. Now, her weapon is stupid simple. It's Slang, Brave, Vantage. Like, that is, look at it, she has so many effects, but they are so synergistic together. And you pair that with something like Exposure, and there's an extra 20 damage per combat that you're getting from that Thor. Like, that is phenomenal. Back to her use cases though, the ability to fly in and out is just fantastic. One of the few flyers here, and having that movement really changes things and makes defenses have a lot more weak spots, to be completely honest. If you can get an attack boosting mythic on a team that's Vantage, you are going to be so much happier. And also, isolation and things like that are just huge. If you're using her in Astra Season, Sather is another one that is just phenomenal. And a lot of times that Hardy Bearing unit is on the front, and I can just use Sather to take them out that way. But there are a lot of different ways that you can handle things with Asker. She's a phenomenal unit. She's a powerhouse. I don't know that I even need to tell you that, but from here, I think we need to get into Rhea because I'm really excited about this one. I know I went into this preaching how Catria Balls are the measuring stick, but look at this defense and these absolute monsters. Like, this is like +10s across the board. This is crazy. Now listen to me very carefully, you Omnitank enthusiasts. Prepare for this defense. This is the new version of Pot Denial, and it is vicious. Also, look at that Rhea take that hit from Seliph. That is phenomenal, Summoners. That is absolutely amazing. So I started this up, and what followed was a 7-minute clear. It took so much longer than I thought it was going to. Here's the thing with Rhea, and it's everything in her kit is synergistic. Like, it is, with the Scowl skill, it is designed to push off that second hit to the special hit. So you take the special, you get it off the first hit, you get it onto the second hit with the true defense, and suddenly things are a lot more palatable. And I mean, look at this unit just taking hits like a champ and just sitting up there. As Summoners, I was so impressed with this. This is absolutely phenomenal. The downside. The thing with this unit is she lacks a lot of killing power, and it's the same problem that we had with Fallen Rhea. This was something that, if you remember her, she left units around a lot, and it became an issue at times. Just understand that it is easier now to stack attack on a unit like this. So she's still not, she's still very viable. Obviously, I mean, I put her in tier 0. This unit is amazing, but it's the reason why she's back here and not over a unit like Dimitri, who I believe doesn't miss kills a whole lot. Anyway, with very little support, this unit owns maps. She's phenomenal. You should try her out. Let's talk about Alir though. This is another one of my absolute favorite units. Summoners, I love Alear so much. It feels like we already talked about this unit. Like, tons of speed, big reigns. It's fantastic. But, I mean, right off the bat here, we're seeing Lilina just ting off this unit. And a lot of that's because of Close Call and the reduction of that AoE special. But still, look at that. 2 Lilinas. And she handles them like they're nothing. This Cav line just... yeah. This is a phenomenal unit. This is the prototype speedy God Sword that all other God Swords are built around. Look at the damage though. Like, she really spits out a lot of damage as well because of those reigns. And what can I say? You combine that with something like Assault Troop and you create some really creative clears that are a lot of fun. How will this unit age? I have no idea. I didn't expect the speed creep to go this far, and I actually expected it to kind of level out. Right now she's at the top though, which means she has a little bit of ways to fall. And I think as long as that is the case, this unit is going to be phenomenal, especially since it is easier to stack things on this unit than one of our other units that's coming up very shortly. First though, we need to talk about Brave Dimitri. I've done several whole episodes on Brave Dimitri. He was just recently a Forma Soul, and I mean, that was that means that you probably got just a ton of good skills on him already. This unit is the poster boy for Omnitanks. This is his preference stuff. Distant counter, special acceleration, in-combat stats, true damage, damage reduction, lull, true defense, guaranteed follow-up. This unit is nuts. Watch, this is a Brave Claude coming in and just like double tinging. Summoners, I don't even know what to say about this. Like, this is crazy. There are some things that have recently helped Brave Dimitri a whole lot. The biggest is Legendary Robin, who, to be honest, has helped a lot of folks. Now, what I want to bring up with Legendary Robin, this is a great time to say it because you guys already know how Brave Dimitri performs. You notice I've done something stupid here. You saw it right there. Like, I have Peony with Gentle Dreams Plus, along with Robin with Grand Strategy. I have taken 2 skills and I have nullified one of them. So, Dimitri doesn't care. Things just ping off of him, but be careful that you have synergy in your skills. Don't be stupid like me. One of the other things, Dimitri absolutely hates Yoon, but there are workarounds, especially with Peony. Understand that you can pretty easily, with the way bonuses are given out now, you can get him 3 spaces away from the other units, and Yoon is much less of a problem. With that being said, Summoners, this is a great unit to invest in. This is a great unit to build teams around. He is a cornerstone and someone that is going to be good for a long time. But are you ready for the best Omnitank in the game? Lucia should be in a class all on her own. She is amazing. It's been said before, but she is the ultimate 1v1 hero. She has so many unique things that I didn't even include some of them in the tier list that we had. Specials, nope, none of them, not even AoEs. Terrain bonuses, they don't exist. Counter Disrupt, no. Negation of anything, no. Her biggest need is healing, and that is why Celine is so good for her. Once you speed stack and have Celine, this unit tanks so many things, so many Catria balls, so many... This is a very invested Catria ball, and Catria just didn't care. Like, it is crazy to see this unit work, and when she comes back around, I am scared because I don't want to go up against more of her on my defense. Like, I just don't want to see it. The one thing you worry about long-term with this unit is speed stacking, and we've said it so much, but honestly, there are a lot of different ways to do that now. We traditionally think of those drives, but we talked about at the very beginning. Those don't work anymore with a world with Embla in it. Like, it doesn't happen. So we have to go with things like Robin and like Ellawood, and that's something that we needed to do anyway. So I still think there are a lot of good ways to stack speed on Lucia, and I think she's going to be good for a very long time. She really, her along with Brave Dimitri, define the Omnitank meta right now. There are incredible units. That being said though, let's go back to the tier list and take a look at how things fill out. Here you have it, the final tier list. I know everyone loves their Omnitanks. Honestly, they're so expensive. Like, these are the most expensive units in the game. From the supports to their skills to the actually summoning. The thing is, they're incredibly satisfying. Again, this is the quintessential Fire Emblem experience, and it's alive and well. So, let me know in the comments who I got right and who I got wrong. I love to talk to everyone about this. I'm bound to have missed something in here. But there's one other thing we really need to go over, and that is, what happened to Omnitanks in the first place? Why did they go away? And what would make your Omnitank go away? All right, I time traveled all the way back to 2020 to look at the timeline that took place here. The Reader's Digest version is basically, IS wanted to sell savior skills, and so they started chipping away at these Omnitanks very early. Like, there are two things that kill Omnitanks. The first is taking away their effects. You think of something like Fatal Smoke taking away healing, Lulls taking away bonuses, Piercing taking away damage reduction. Also, think about Feud taking away their drives. Like, these are big, big deals. A lot of this stuff happened. Like, the Valentine's banner just absolutely smashed people. But even things like Young Inez and having damage piercing on a Grail unit, like that is something there. The other thing is you take away their supports, and this was something that was done more actively. You think of hyper-mobile teams like Note Lines, the addition of the Mythic Dancers, like, this was a big deal. But also little things like Katria's Warp Effect is huge. Like, people don't fully realize how much that Order's effect helps defenses so much. I don't know that she is ever going away, but she was a big part in just helping absolutely destroy Omnitanks. So we're looking at this, and the two biggest things I'd watch out for in the future are easier access to damage piercing. So we're probably talking about preference weapon damage piercing and the rise of the mobility meta. I'm not sure if that's going to come to be, and I'm not sure. I have seen the mobility meta start to show its ugly head once more, and I am still able to use Omnitanks. But you think of new things being added, like Sigurd being able to attack and then give everyone else extra movement. We never thought something like that was going to happen. So the biggest thing you need to watch out for is IS trying to sell us something else. Just understand that IS is not subtle, so you will see this coming. So thank you guys so much for listening. I started collecting footage and ideas for this 2 months ago. When I tell you I love Omnitanks, I really do. Like, they are a passion of mine. But if you'd like to support the show and all the hard work that goes into it, always appreciate super thanks. If you'd like to go the extra mile there, we just opened up memberships, and there are a lot of things that come with those. The details will be on the channel page, but honestly, however you want to support the video, whether it's just a view or a like, I am very appreciative. The community in general has taken such good care of me and FEHology. I appreciate you guys a ton. So take care and schedule an appointment with your FEH just real soon.